All right, everybody, welcome to the podcast. Before we go further into it, I wanted to let you know that we have our first sponsor. Jack Brown's Joint in Kill Devil Hills, North Carolina, is our first sponsor, making this episode possible. Thank you, JB's. It's a proper joint, great beer, great burgers, totally awesome. Brent, who owns it, is awesome. So thank you, Jack Brown's. And now the podcast. 3, 2, 1.
Yes, sir.
Welcome back to the Everything Pocket. We took a little vacation, and now that we're back from shores unknown, we have the unstoppable Pat McGee with us.
Howdy. What's going on?
Good to have you, man.
Dude, thank you. Sorry it took so long to make this happen. All of a sudden I was doing nothing, then all of a sudden I was busy. All kinds of busy. So it's good, right?
Yeah, it's been like that.
Dude. I mean, you're a full-on family man too. Like, you got kids in college and
Yeah, I got 4 kids in college. When this is over, I gotta go pick up my daughter at field hockey practice 8 towns over in Rhode Island. That's like 8 states over. So I live in Rhode Island, in case you guys didn't know that.
we knew that.
Well,
Our listeners,
common-
though. Yeah.
the common man.
The people
Oh,
out there,
Yeah.
hailing from Rhode Island.
The angel
So-
of Providence. That's what we were talking about, man.
Oh man, I don't know how many angels are in Providence, but it's a pretty awesome city, I will say. I do dig it.
I love that you're representing Providence. Like, you're the only person that we know in our circuit that's like rocking Providence, because it's cool up there, man. It's historical,
Man, yeah.
artistic.
I just remember going to like Georgetown basketball games back in the day, and when they would play Providence, like, where is that place? What is that? Like, it sounds super fancy or something. And I had never been past New York City in my life, and then I moved up here, and I was like, this place is fantastic. So it's kind of a good spot. You
Yeah.
pop down to New York, and you can get up to Boston quick. And I've learned very quickly, Rhode Islanders go nowhere. I mean, they would think DC or Richmond traffic would just be absolute nightmare to them. So it's a different way of life up here for sure.
It's true, man. It's absolutely true. So how did
Yeah.
you get there, and what is so magical about it?
Like, what Craig was saying about the history, but really just the coast, the shoreline, the water is literally everywhere. I mean, I know Outer Banks is the same vibe, but in Rhode Island, every turn you take, there's another bridge, and oh, look, another body of water. That's why it's the ocean state, and it's just kind of everywhere. I came up here. My ex-wife is from Portsmouth, Rhode Island, so we met in college at Longwood at Farmville, Virginia, and moved to Richmond 94, 95. And then when we knew we were going to have kids and I was going to be on the road all the time with the Pat McGee band, I was like, well, let's get near your folks. And Rhode Island is amazing. So we just set up shop up here. 2000, I moved up.
Word.
So I can't believe I've been here that long, but it's crazy. Been here longer than I was in Annandale, I think. It's
Dude,
crazy.
that's amazing. That's amazing. Like, we're getting to
Yeah.
the stage now where it's just like, yeah, we've known each other 30 years.
I know, it's weird.
It's
weird.
amazing, dude.
No, yeah, it's great. It's great. It's great. I like it. So I love it up here. It's easy travel, airport's easy to deal with. And I just like the people. They're super people. I think it got like a bad rap. Like, it kind of gets lumped into like the roughnecks of South Boston that may be a little like, Wahlberg tough, those kinds of dudes. But honestly, Rhode Islanders are just like laid back. They're crazy liberal, which I can agree with. And it just feels like home. It's great. I dig it.
Nice.
Yeah.
We'd love to hear that. And so, how far are you from Mashpee?
Oh, Mashpee. That's my mother-in-law lives in Mashpee, Cape Cod. Yeah, dude. How do you know Mashpee?
Dude, because it's right next to Sandwich.
These places are nuts. You go to Cape Cod, and like I grew up going to either the Jersey Shore or Nags Head.
Yeah.
And you drive around, where the ocean is, where the stuff is. And then you go to Cape Cod, like, where's everything? Like, we used to play the Melody tent, but we would come in on the bus, play the tent, leave. I never saw the ocean. And Cape Cod's, it's beautiful once you find the spots. But when you're just driving around, you're like, what is this joint? So yeah, Mashpee, I've been there many times. Sandwich as well.
It's a sign on the way to Nantucket. And we had, so Steve will attest to this, and you know this, Pat, there's a
Yeah,
microculture that goes with every band. And
right.
there are a few road signs. There's, I think on 81 down in between Virginia Tech and Bristol, there's, I think it's Butt Hollow Road. You remember that, Steve?
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
And I think there's a road maybe in Hampton that's Rip Rap Road. And we always love that term rip rap because you'd see it's like construction detritus. Be like, oh man, look
Oh
at the
my
rip rap,
God.
you know, and it was just like things like that. So sandwich and mashed pea is like,
Yeah,
well
right. Yeah, they
entrenched
got
in
some
my mind.
funky names up here. Dude, I have such a vivid memory of being on the Nantucket ferry with you, Craig. I mean, it must have been the whole band, obviously. We were going out there we probably playing the Muse or something. If we were on the boat together, that we had to have been doing that. I just remember laughing hysterically because this other sailboat came by and you screamed out, you're like, some joke about, oh my God, we've run out of brie. And I thought that was the funniest shit I ever heard. I was like, what did he just say? I'm like, oh my God. That was like 25 years ago. I remember it like it was yesterday.
Dude.
It's good stuff. I couldn't believe we put a bus on the ferry. That's ridiculousness.
Dude.
They had a bus out there, a samples, and it was crazy.
The
Anyway.
Oh man. Wow, dude.
Yeah.
Wow, we're just diving right in. Steve, what do
Yeah.
you think? Where do we want to start with Pat? Do we want to start with our history? Like maybe like tell us a little bit about how you came up, because we have everything fans listening to this, but there's also some new people that are hopping on board who might not know some of the context.
Well, look, hey, I had the joy of playing with one Nate Brown this weekend, who is just,
Oh yeah.
I mean, there's just no more joyous musician to play with, really. It's incredible. It's so inspiring. It's just to have it. We played Richmond this weekend. He was so kind to fill in. And we played Peabody's.
Yeah, we'll have to
we'll get into that later.
That. Yeah, that's an amazing one.
Yeah, something happened that has never happened to me in my life.
Oh.
And that says a lot. So, and I was so glad Nate was a part of that. I'm sure he's laughing on Monday morning about the same thing. But so I'm 1989, maybe 88. I'm visiting my brother at Virginia Tech. I went down for the weekend to see Egypt play at his fraternity house at Phi Cap on the Duck Pond Drive. I only know it because we played there so many times. We played there, and I'm just a 15. I must have been 16 because I drove down. 16-year-old kid standing on the back deck watching the band load in, and I'm just like, this is incredible. Like I'm watching the Who load into RFK or something. Like I'm watching the Road Cases come in. I didn't know there was opening bands. And I think it was you, Steve. You came around the corner and I'm like, oh, what are you guys? Because I knew the guys in Egypt, or at least I knew what they looked like. And I'm like, what are you guys doing here? And all you did was like point to your shorts that had the logo on them. I was like, cool. I'm like holding a pitcher of beer. And he's like, and this other band, Tweed Sneakers, is playing. I'm like,
oh,
awesome.
Snap.
Like, this is going to be a great night. And it was a life-changing night for me to watch, as a 16-year-old, watch these original bands do their thing instead of this cover thing. It was incredible. I just remember seeing your keyboard player had the keys that were like bending everywhere. Like, this is amazing. It was such a night. And so fast forward to like, maybe we're playing Lombardi Gras at JMU or something like that. I don't know when the first Pat McGee band, everything our touring cross paths, but probably there, or like Mayo Island, or God knows these festivals in DC. You start seeing the same names on the calendar at the Bayou and Georgetown and all these places. And it was just, we were happy to be anywhere in your universe. I'm like, we're playing the same places that everything plays. We have done something right. So it was, I wish there was some sort of archive that showed all the times we probably played together, but incredible moments.
Yeah. And together too. Like that's one of the hallmarks of, I think, the mid-Atlantic scene and that time period. And then also our band and your band and Egypt and sort of this legacy of just like jamming together, which was kind of amazing. Can we talk for a second about the aesthetic of a fraternity party? Like, cause we came up and you came up on that, that was,
right.
That was bread and butter. And it's
right.
not, it's not a typical show aesthetic. It's not there
No.
are certain things that work and certain things that don't work, and in order to make that work, I think it shaped, some of the things about us as bands.
Oh, I believe that. Yeah. I just remember hitting the colleges pretty hardcore in the beginning because, well, it was great instant crowds. It was obviously it always paid the bills really well most of the time because we were doing original music. You were presented as such, and yes, you could throw in some covers to make things fun, but we always took it like we treated it like it was a real, like we were playing in a club. And I remember we just decided at one point, no more colleges, no matter how good the money is, no more fraternities anyway. And we got to play the venues. And that's when switching from playing at, the Philadelphia scene of fraternities, or even outside of Pennsylvania, outside of Philly, and only playing at the TLA, putting all our eggs in that basket, made a lot less money, but felt like, well, this is the right move because this is what we're supposed to do. Otherwise, we're going to be, you know, I'll be getting hired at like Doug Clark of the Hot Nuts out of Richmond or like 80 years old and playing Motown, which is awesome. But like, I saw a different path, and I felt like the energy of those rooms matched the vibe of the band for the most part. If you can deal with the chaos of a fraternity house, I don't even think those exist anymore. I like, my daughters are in college. They're like, no, there's no bands, and you can't even have parties in fraternity houses. So I feel like that's kind of a lost thing. I don't know what younger bands are doing now.
Yeah, it's interesting how much everything's changed. Just how you come up these days, and like, a lot of it has to do with some kind of digital exposure as opposed to like playing out. But for us,
Yeah.
I think for us it was I think there were some bad habits that we picked up coming out of the fraternities, because it was there was a certain kind of music that worked really well, that was kind of like, especially as the night went on, that was more and more kind of knuckleheaded, and that
Right,
was
right.
The subtlety and the magic of what you can do with a crowd of people with music got more and
Yeah.
more like, like kind of like a blunt object. And some
Oh
of the
yeah.
songs that like did really, really well for us back then were songs that, like, haven't really stood the test of time, maybe. But I do remember this feeling,
Sure.
and I don't think it was a terrible thing of like going into battle, basically. Like, we're going into this setting that that things might get hairy, even if it's good, like that people
Right.
are pretty fired up, and there's not security in front of the stage. You're lucky to have like
Yeah.
a mesh plastic fence that's going to get torn down in the second song anyway. But like,
Yeah.
you're going to get mic stands like pushed up into your face, and like,
Right.
that's under the best circumstances. Like, that's
Yeah.
like best case, and
Right.
there was some stuff, obviously, I think anybody that's played more than a dozen frat shows, that like, the worst case stuff, but that whole mentality of just
Yeah.
like, okay, like, we're going in to do this thing, and it was almost like, it almost felt like sort of like a bit like a soldier sometimes, like, okay,
Yeah.
like, like, get ready.
We definitely felt like we were some sort of barbarian tribe that just went around and did this when we were doing those college shows. I mean, we had one at Old Miss down in Mississippi. We pull our tour bus. This is the point we're on a bus. We're still doing these things because they're paying well. In the South, was SEC schools just have these humongous parties, like
Yep.
1,500 kids. So we're thinking it's going to be just like every other one. We pull up. They had decided to use the plywood stage that was even if it was just the stage, it would have been the worst stage we've ever seen. Even on our very first gig, this was like 5 to 6 years into the band. They had just had a dump truck drop a mountain of crawfish onto the stage that we're about to load in on. I'm talking like 4 feet of like coming down, and they're all alive. There's juice everywhere. It's hot as hell. It's Mississippi. I'm like, we're playing on that stage. I'm like, dude, you guys got to clean that. Like, our road manager's like, unacceptable. You guys got to deal with this right now. And that could have been the worst part of it. But lo and behold, we do our gig. It's during the day. They somehow went up against other better parties. Not a single girl came to this fraternity party. So it's just a bunch of drunk dudes. And at the end, because they were so drunk. When they offered to load our stuff out, they tried to steal half of our equipment.
Nice.
So they're rolling amps down a fraternity hallway and just putting them into closets. And we get to our trailer, we're like, doesn't look like the normal pack. And our road manager and a couple of the guys in the band are like, unacceptable. We go inside, we start kicking open doors. There's typical fraternity scene right out of a freaking Lampoon movie. Dudes sitting there with their bongs, like, what? We rip open curtains of closets. We see our road cases in there, guitars stashed behind couches. And we're like, you guys, we're sorry the party didn't work out. You're stealing our equipment now? What is this?
Yeah.
So we got our stuff back, and then they wanted to challenge us to an actual like rumble in front of the frat. So that stuff, and of course we were like, you guys, there has to be a level-headed situation here. Like, we got to go now. Yeah. They threw bottles at our bus as we drove away.
Dude, that's amazing.
Yeah, it's when someone's like, what's the worst gig? I'm like, that's definitely the worst.
Yeah.
As far as like maybe fighting, getting stuff stolen, everything about it was awful. But yeah, I thought our bus driver was going to kill him when they started throwing glass at the actual bus.
Yeah, so, bus drivers don't mess around. They're
he came out with a bat, and he's just like, I'm going to just crack skulls open in front of this fraternity house. We had to calm him down. We left. So anyway, yeah, dude, you're right about that bad habits you can pick up there with the music. I feel so fortunate now to have gone over that hill and are able to like play some of the listening rooms of the world and play some of the music that I really would have loved to have played back then. But if you're busting out some of that stuff late night at a fraternity house, it's not going to fly. So
yeah, totally. Yeah,
compared with acoustic guitar is a target in that circumstance.
Oh my God. Yeah. I mean, between Chardy and Chris, they just kept us. Chardy would just play the hell out of the percussion, like, and it, we could extend the song for another 20 minutes, and I'm like, we just do it. Like, let's not try and like appeal to their artistic side at 1 a.m. in Baton Rouge.
No. You might as well like be chanting like fairy spells or something. Like, it's just not. It's not going to work. It's funny though, because that contrasts like 180 degrees, just like you said, like the listening rooms. The last gig that we played together, which was the Barns at Wolf Trap, which was just amazing. It was so pristine. You get to this to this level of listening and the audience and everything, where like you have to be so careful about how you play, and like it's like almost like walking on a tightrope or something, which is, if you do it right, it's amazing. Like I remember finishing some songs and just looking over at Craig and Nate and being like, wow, like that, we've never done that before. It was
that is
wonderful. So thank you.
Well, of course. Well, I've always thought like, well, this seventh member, we were a 6-piece, and the seventh member of the band is always the audience. Back in the early days, they were just, just fuel of just craziness. And now it's the silence of the room, which you're able to like, I'm going to play this off of that nothingness out there. Yeah. And I love those moments so much. I mean, it took us a long time to adapt to, I think the Rams Head in Annapolis was the first time we ever attempted to play a listening room where people had to sit down and weren't allowed to talk during our shows. And then we did one show there, and we had just done the Naval Academy with Ziggy Marley in the arena. And it was the room was full of people that were just ready to party. And a lot of them were Naval Academy, cadets. And they were standing on the table, screaming all the songs they wanted to hear. And the Rams Head technically banned us. We didn't play there for like 3 years because they're like, you can't come back in here. You guys are like Kiss. Like, we're an acoustic rock band. How did this? I don't even understand. Like, I'm sorry, but I tried to control these people. I can't like scream at them, sit down, don't talk. But over the years, it's become part of the thing. So, and then when you bring it up and you tell them to get up, then it's cool. The Barns being the ultimate of like, I present to you my music. Here you go. It's still intimidating to do that gig, but it's fun to tap into that.
It's a very honest room. I remember playing, and it's like the sound is like, well, there's the sound, nothing more, and there's nothing less. You go slunk, and it's like, that's exactly what it sounds like. It's not loud. It's not quiet. it's like, there it is. And it just sits there and you're like, be okay with what you're doing.
Right.
Like, that's it.
Yeah,
This is what you are.
I
So do
know.
that. And it was cool. Pat, the biggest, the second biggest compliment, the biggest compliment was when you called and said, hey, do you want to come open for us at the Barns? Like, that was a really
Oh,
awesome
dude.
thing. And I do want to talk more about that kind of stuff, because one of the things I've gotten to know about you since I've moved down here to the Outer Banks is just sort of your role as a leader in the musical scene here in the East, and with songwriters around the country, because I think that's a really important part of your journey. The second biggest compliment of the night was when that long standing sound guy, what was his name? They'd been there forever.
Oh, Bob Grimes. Yeah.
Bob Grimes came up to us after the second night and was just like, hey, I just want to tell you guys sounded incredible, which I was just like, this guy's been around for a long, long time, and he has to say exactly zero to anybody.
Exactly.
So that was just like, that little piece of validation that was like, man, thank you. That was like, don't hang my hat on outside validation as much anymore. But when you get an expert come up to you and give you the little tip of the hat, you're like,
oh,
sweet.
Dude, we played Richmond this weekend, and the sound company guy, I look over halfway through the show, he had bought our sweatpants and our sweatshirt. He had changed during the gig. I'm looking over, I'm like, that dude just bought our the monitor guy who's been here all day.
Yeah.
Who I have never met. I'm like, that's a compliment right there. That, I mean, he doesn't need to do that. I don't know. Yeah, Bob is a sweet guy, but he's not an easy. He doesn't throw around compliments. We played there a long time. He doesn't say a whole lot.
What do you think? So, kind of diving into stuff. I'm curious about where some of the change points that you hit along the way that you felt like were milestones where you started to change. And we've talked about one where you decided to like lean away from the social party scene in colleges, because that underwrote a lot of bands' early careers, because it could balance out the checkbook for people playing clubs. Was it around your move? Like, when did you start to like hit certain milestones where you're like, okay, I'm changing from here to here, and you felt like things really seriously turn?
Well, so we were this band who was doing what everybody else was doing, playing as if there was an eighth night a week, we would have played it. It was the Wednesdays at Tracks in Charlottesville, the Thursday at the Flood Zone. And that was our bread and butter for developing what we do. And we could play our different music every week. I'm a big, deadhead at heart. So it's like, I want to always be different every week. And that was, we put that forth from the beginning. We use the weekend to sort of test the road, and then always come back and do those house shows, which I still say to anyone who asks me, hey, what should I do to get started? I'm like, dude, I have no idea, but you should play every week at the same place if you can, because you're just going to you're going to get into your thing and it's going to develop. So anyway, I would say we had 3 albums out, we decided to go for the whole get signed thing. And that, we had never been to the West Coast. We went out to San Francisco to make a record out there. And it was our first major label thing. Anyone else telling us what to do? We produced our own records at the time. We didn't, even our early records, we just did them ourselves. We never had anybody. So it was an interesting process to have someone else put their 2 cents in. And I think the first record definitely sounded like us. The second Warner Brothers record, at the time, things changed on the radio a little bit, and Warner Brothers got a new president, and they're like, plus my band, we had our first member change. We brought a gentleman who plays acoustic and sings the Stratosphere Harmonies, Al. He left the band, and in came Brian Facchino, who is a monster guitar player. So I was always nervous, we can't come out swinging with electric guitars after we're trying to pull off this Crosby, Stills, Nash thing for 5 years. And so we slowly started doing more of that. And we're on Warner Brothers with the Goo Goo Dolls and the Chili Peppers and REM. And these were the people that we were trying to get the same radio spot, and which was kind of a nightmare because you're never going to win against those bands. And we got our shot. And I think at that moment, if I could go back and tweak anything, I mean, I'm super proud of the record we made and the songs I wrote. but it took us out of, we used to be in the books, the jam band books, and like we would be on the Horde Festival and running around with Blues Traveler all the time. And then we started doing Counting Crows Wallflower States. And we sort of moved over to like radio stuff, which is easy to do because you're like, well, this is why we're on Warner, right? This is what we should do, I guess. I don't know. So I don't know that there was only really one thing, but it was definitely a take our eye off the ball of grassroots and try and swing for the fences at radio. And it's a tough game, and it didn't kick for us, but thankfully we had a fan base that is still there on some level, supporting all of the songs, as opposed to like, oh, we had that one hit, because we all know bands that had a big hit right off the bat, and they're long gone. They're not playing anymore because they didn't have fans of the whole thing. They had fans of that song they heard on the radio. So it's a hard one to answer. It's hard, the long-winded answer, but
no, that's a significant, I mean, there's no like,
you know,
there's no wrong or right answers with this. I think it's these conversation points, because we had a similar turn with Hooch. I mean, we literally on some level became a one-hit wonder, because it was like, I tell people, it's like the band had a career and then we wrote a song that became a zeitgeist and it did this.
yeah.
And then things got all jacked up. And it's like, it's a big wisdom thing. You know, there's a certain thing that I was reading an interview with George Clinton, and he was talking about something. It was an interview, it was like 6 years ago. And he was like, you know, he's like, what people don't think about with the music industry. He's like, I thought this, he's like, you know, like any career, it's like, if you really go for it, like you're going to like do something and then try something. And then even if you don't like totally succeed, you're still going to kind of like move up the ladder a little bit. He's like, but it's not like that. It's like you go for something and either you succeed or it's total annihilation. And I was like, no, that's kind of true, you know, on some like when you swing for the fences and it doesn't happen, like the world and the machine's just like, okay, like another person has been dying for this shot.
Right.
Let's just put them in their pellet in the machine and let's see what happens. And I'm glad that, you know, you've been leading the way as an entrepreneur in your musical career, keeping your fan base, expanding all of that. So do you think that that moment in the music industry helped define your path moving forward?
Sure. I mean, look, I mean, I've always been, I'm a huge fan of music. If you're not, you're a music, it's a silly thing to say as a musician, but like, I just love the other bands that we play with. If back from day one, if we have an opener, or we're opening and there's a third act, I'm watching all of it, like because I just feel like I'm going to get something out of it, whether or not it's my thing or not my thing. I definitely like to check it out, and plus I don't like to come on as the front guy and be like, who opened the show? Oh, I was sitting outside. Like that just makes me have anxiety. Like I can't even like get up there if I'm not in the vibe of the room. I don't know what people are feeling like. I got to know what's going on. And, you know, even from the days I can remember being at the Bayou, and Train is out opening for us. And Train was the first of 4 bands on the whole. We were on that Aware tour. We closed and they were the first. Nobody knew who they were. They had Meet Virginia on the record, on the compilation. And they played to like, you know, the bartenders and and all the other bands. No one saw their set. So I would always be like, you guys, save Meet Virginia. And they used to crush Ramble On. I'm like, come out during our encore. I want you guys to play those 2 songs. And I've had many people say to me, like, along that way, like, why are you doing that? Like, even my first manager is like, why are you giving up your moment to this band? I'm like, it's not my moment. Like, this is a moment of the whole night should be an experience for people. They should leave there going, that was the best night ever. I'm not going to put it on that band or that guy or that guitar solo. It's just a whole thing that happened. And I always felt like that's the way it should be. People should be supporting each other. It's never a competition. So we've been doing that all along. So to go from supporting that and trying to like put ourselves out there, like, dude, we want everyone to have a great time tonight. That's why I'm doing these festivals 12 years running now. And it started off as, I just want people to see the opening bands that are out with me. This was during the singer-songwriter touring, where I had like some random dude in Milwaukee open for me, and he's amazing and he's never left Milwaukee. I'm like, dude, you want to come play for 200 hardcore people in Nags Head, North Carolina. It's like, I've never been there. I'm like, so it started off with 2 people. Now you just saw I have like 14 bands there, and we're all supporting each other. And that's, if I could do 5 of those a year, I would just do that. I mean, I love it. I love getting inspired by other musicians. I love lifting other people up. I think it's fun. I think it's good for everybody. And, it's not some plan. It's just, it's what I like about music. I don't know.
Yeah, totally. That I think there's another way to ask this question, and I like doing this. I'm doing a lot of stuff in the education space, and
Mm-hmm.
working with kids that are discovering that they love music and they love creating music,
Right.
and that maybe there's a path there. So in another context, and this is for people that don't know your story, but you've been a career musician for how many years now?
Well, since I was 19, so 48, whatever the hell that is, 30 years almost.
Yeah. So
So,
so in 30 years, like doing this and like, all the changes that you were talking about, and frat shows to listening rooms, and radio versus not, and getting signed, and all these different kinds of things. If
mhm.
there were like 2 or 3 or 5 things that you can boil it down to, like, hey, if you're 16 and you want to do this, if you want to be a lifer, then you need to think about these things. What would those things be?
Yeah. Well, I think I touched on the playing in live. I think I don't know, I met some people out at the NAMM festival, which is something I've never done, not festival, but that conference of just gear. I've never been to it my whole career. I went to it 2 years ago and was like, wow, okay, this is a whole other world out here of musicians. And I talk to musicians who have never played a live gig in their life, and they just do ringtones. They do like metal versions of Disney songs for video games. There's a whole other world of like, and these were amazing musicians. I'm like, so does your band play anywhere? They're like, no, I've never not been in my parents' basement playing behind a green screen ever. Like,
Yeah.
man, are you like nervous about it? He's like, I guess. I'm like, so there's no human interaction in what you're doing. I wasn't trying to put it down. I was just trying to understand it. So I'm like, well, I don't know if that's a life thing. Maybe you'll be a composer of all kinds of other music. There's so many different paths, but for what if you want to go into our world and a singer songwriter, which is what it boils down to. That's what I was when I started, and that's what I still think I am. When I was like, what kind of music are you? I'm like, I don't know, singer songwriter, rock band. Sometimes I don't know, but getting a regular gig, and trying to do your thing as opposed to diving too far into some artist that you might love. As much as I love Allman Brothers or Dead, or even I went through a massive phase of loving all, Bad Brains and 24/7 Spies and Living Color and all that music, that I was like, I love this shit so much. Like, I so much energy in it. And I was a big Metallica head for a long time, still am. But I knew when I started playing music, uh, that wasn't what I was gonna do. Like, I got to do my thing, and what naturally comes out of me is this thing, and this more simple type of singing. I'm not going to try and be someone I'm not. So I think you got to be true to yourself, and do that. What naturally comes out of you. I'm seeing this kid who literally was doing landscaping at my house, and he saw my shed. I had an old Vox amp that I'm pretty sure Raccoon has lived in for about 10 years. I just haven't had the guts, I feel bad dragging it to the curb. This thing, there's no way. And I'm not a tinker. I don't know how to fix anything. He dragged this amp out of the shed. He just put a video up last night playing Grateful Dead covers. He's 19. The amp is pristine. He brought it back from the dead, literally the dead. And he's doing his thing, and he's singing his butt off, and he sounds like himself. Like, anytime you hear someone, you're like, yep, that's what that guy, that you're totally being you right now. That's what's going to resonate with people, that you're being honest, because if they're trying to figure out who you sound like or what you're trying to pull off, then I think that's a miss. I think you just got to do what naturally comes out of you, whether it's perfect or it's not. I mean, this kid's 19 and he's like I saw him at the Dead and Company show up in Boston, and he's listening to nearly 80-year-old Bob Weir kind of sing okay, but it never has mattered. And I think that gives him the courage to be like, oh, well, he's doing it. I don't have to be Steve Perry to pull this gig off. I can just sing. Yeah, just do you. And I don't know. As far as what else to tell people, again, I'm not going to claim to know anything about social media, or I struggle with it at best. I know I have to do it. In a perfect world, I wouldn't have to touch it at all, but I get that there's like, it's a way to stay connected. So they could probably teach me a thing or 200 on that, in that world, on how to stay alive. I had a manager 10 years ago tell me, you should start doing a lot of covers online. I'm like, what? Why? At this point, I got out of that world. Like, why would I go back into it? But I do see that it works for some people. I don't want to spend the time learning a cover song when I could write my own song. I just don't want to waste the time on it. So that may be foolish, but that's where I'm at.
Well, I mean, think about how many times somebody's like, "Oh, you know what you should do?" That's the words that I'm just like, "What's that?" I remember Steve, do you remember this? So we were like, we were early 90s, and we were like, getting our demos together. You had demos, right? Get a 4-song demo, and you try to get signed, try to get a showcase. And like, we had some showcase, I think, was it at the Wetland, Steve, when that guy who managed Hurricane Alice or some kind of metal band that was like gold. And this guy came, and basically we did a showcase for him. Do you remember this guy, Steve? And he said that he looked at Rich, because you remember, Pat, that Rich, our saxophone, 6'7".
Yeah.
He said that he was like, okay, I get you guys are onto something. He's like, but your sax player, man, he's got to give that guy like a skunk stripe mohawk, and you're like totally on your way.
Oh,
and that was like the feedback. Do you remember that, Steve? Like that, like thing. And it was just like something that was just like, that's amazing. I'll always remember that for the rest of my life. That was feedback was to get your tall guy a skunk stripe mohawk, and that was going to be the thing, because it was so like not real. Like it was so like, Pat, that Kermit puppet. Go get yourself a puppet right now, bro.
Right.
I think one of the most important things that you said was authenticity, and really just finding what works for you, finding your wheelhouse, like that place where, and I think this is that digital medium is a whole new world, and there are like real career paths that weren't even like a thing back when we were coming up, but I think that playing live gives you that like real time feedback on that, where it's like you can tell when something's working and when it's not. And if what you're doing is authentic and it's working, then like, guess what? Like that's the spot, Right. And if it's not one or the other, then like, if it's authentic and it's not working, then you got to keep fishing around. And if it's not authentic, and even if it's working, then like that's going to be a real short road too. But
that's right. Yeah. I just don't know how you have a career starting now with this. It's more a bunch of how many likes you're going to get, how many people are going to like maybe pay attention to you real quick, but not be invested. Are you going to be doing this in 30 years? Can you play that song without that computer? I don't know. Like it's I'm happy to be where we are. I have no like, oh man, people are always like, you'll talk to someone's like, how can, like, they'll just be super blatant. How come you never made it? Like, we're sitting at the City Winery in New York City. I'm playing for you. I don't know. This is making it to me. Yeah. I have 2 kids in college and somehow we're able to pay for it, or someday. I don't know. I don't look at it like, I don't look at anyone that's playing arenas and go, damn, what happened? What went wrong? Or just keep cranking away.
Yeah, and I'm sure you saw enough of that lifestyle that and that like that roller coaster, that like rocket boost up into that rarefied air, that it messed up a lot of people, you know, and that,
Oh yeah,
we got, you know, we had just that, you know, having that hit song, having that thing on the radio, and then being
sure.
in the same space as a lot of bands that were like going through that same thing. It was really interesting to see that, the pressures of that. And, you know, I think Craig,
Right.
you alluded to this earlier, that like having a hit song for us kind of meant that like there wasn't going back. There wasn't going back, and as we had a hit song for like, it was on the radio for like over 2 years.
Right.
When we finally came back to our fan base, they were like, you know, you guys were gone for 2 years. I mean,
Yeah.
like, mad props that you had a hit song. That's great. But like,
Sure.
you know, we didn't come see you at that radio show in, you know, wherever. And
Yeah.
that, it just really, it's interesting, and I guess that's just the perception, you know, like, people love to
Sure.
see that, like, you know, sold a million records, and you know, like,
Right.
now you're on MTV Cribs or something. But it's like that, there's a
Yeah.
I think there's a lot to be said for your path, man, that you've been able to do what you want to do. You've been able to stay true to that, and by doing that, that you've created this 30-year career. I mean, that's like, that's making it for sure,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah, that's how I feel. I mean, I feel like every record, the bands I grew up loving, even Van Halen's records were very different record to record.
Right.
I was like, geez, these guys keep changing what they're doing. This is cool. And yeah, I'm not a huge REM fan, but they were doing that. U2 was doing it. It just sounded a lot different every time. You heard that first, back when you couldn't preview anything, you just got it, put it in the cassette deck or the CD player, and you're like, oh my God, what is this? Um, I like that, and I like, my head's always going to the next record. As soon as I finish one, I'm like, well, that there's always one song on the record that kind of like makes you feel like that's where I'm going. Maybe it's the last song you recorded, or maybe it's the last song you wrote, or maybe it's just a feeling that it's like, man, I think I want to go into this other thing. And I told Nate, I'm like, I got to spend some stuff to Nate, because I feel like I want to do something really weird with my next record, and I think he'd be awesome. So we had such a good time making that one record, me and Andy and Nate at Dave's studio in Charlottesville, and
Yeah.
it was a blast. And Doug Derryberry at
Oof,
and Lawler was there. It
dude.
was a great experience. The whole thing was amazing, and it was just a really fun album to be a part of. And I felt like I was a part of my own record, and having those guys be like, wow, these are cool songs. But so did you feel like when you were out doing the, like, supporting Hooch, and that you were doing shows where you're like, man, I don't think we can play Skinny Little White Butt or Soulfish at this show. It's just not, we can't be that band anymore. We are now this band.
Oh,
Because
100%.
I felt that way. We had like 4-minute pop rock songs on this one record, and that's kind of what we were doing. And I'm like, we can't play this like 20-minute jam. People are gonna freaking leave, you know, or the label is gonna be like, what are you doing?
Right.
So, and I can't say that at the time I was like pissed about it. I liked the sound of it. I thought, oh, this is cool. I mean, I don't know. I don't look at it and think it, because I was still playing with my brothers in the band. It wasn't like I got new guys. We were all feeling it, and we were all pumped about it. And, you know, and the music was maybe bigger and more powerful, you know, but it wasn't as organic. So, you know, that's what I've been getting back to the last 15 years.
Yeah, and it was a gateway. I mean, like, that was the only way that you could achieve, you know, that kind of scale. That was the
Right.
only those were the only gates available to you to do that,
Right.
back when we were coming up. Like, it was
Sure.
radio, it was MTV, it was a record label, it was all those things. Like, you just had to like check those boxes. And it was crazy for us, because we were so all over the map, like, musically,
Yeah.
that first of all, what we had to do was dial it in, you know, and Craig really, you know, like, songwriting wise and just intention wise, was always kind of the lightning rod for all of that. And so, like, kind of bringing it in, and then working
Hmm.
with Jim on that record, and like,
Right.
all of that was super intentional, and it was kind of in order to get this thing that could maybe pass through those gates. And
Sure.
then, holy mackerel, it did, you know. And
Yeah.
once that happened, back to your question, like, it started at Modern Rock Radio,
No, it
and
Yeah.
the
started at
song,
AAA. It started at
what?
AAA. Remember?
Oh, I thought it was
AAA, bro, and it was KBCO.
right.
Oh yeah,
But
Janet, like,
the radio shows though, the first radio shows that we were doing were like
right.
these modern rock radio shows.
Oh
'Cause
right, yeah.
it has to, like, it can't go pop to modern rock. Like modern rock won't, it's not cool at that point.
No, of course
So
not.
so we're playing with like these, like, like metal bands, rock bands.
Yeah,
And
Monster
we're like
Magnet.
all in our fancy suits, and the record label's like, we want you guys to look good, kind of, like Duran Duran, and
Yeah,
we're like,
yeah, yeah.
okay, let's look good, and then we've got this song Hooch, and we've got like Ladybug, and we've got Time Will Heal
Yeah.
Me, and we've got these like
Right.
wonderful, like sweet, pop songs.
right.
And yeah, so it was really interesting trying to like sort of maneuver through all of those because
Yeah.
you can't play those songs in front of a crowd that just heard like Seven Dust. You cannot.
No, dude, I remember talking because Earth to Andy, we were on Giant together, and those guys, they would stick them out with way heavy bands.
Yeah.
And they were like crazy. And those guys were like, dude, we are getting booed off stage because we are too Beatles Z rock, like, and that is not a chill band. I mean, as far as I'm concerned,
No.
they're a badass band,
Totally.
but they still were it was missing the point with labels. I mean, I remember getting in an argument with Warner Brothers because we had an opportunity to go out with Don Henley, and we had just done 2 summers with the Allman Brothers. It was perfect for us. First off, I was a huge fan, and then every night we're selling 400, 500, 600 CDs a night because they looked at us like, I hear the influence in your playing and your writing. Your band is like the younger version of why we're here.
Totally.
And the label was like, yeah, we can't have, you got to go out with like Michelle Branch, and who else are putting us out with, Vanessa Carlton, like radio bands, Goo Goo Dolls. I'm like, even Resnick, who we became buddies with on the label, he was just like, I'm just riding this out. I mean, the Goo Goo Dolls used to be a punk band before they started.
Totally.
So he was like, I'm just doing this now. It's working. Careful, bro. Just be careful.
Right.
And, like, okay. But I remember wanting to be out with Don Henley, and they were like, it's a kiss of death, man. No cool radio station's going to add you in Tucson, Arizona, because you're out with Don Henley. I'm like, yeah, but their fans would freaking dig it. And I was always like the slow burn career thing. And I didn't win those battles of like, we should be out with those older career acts. I still say it. I'm like, can you put me out with Bonnie Raitt? Because that would be great. I would love that. I have a friend who does, somehow he's got into the world of REO Speedwagon. Sounds nothing like them. And he's doing his acoustic gig out with REO Speedwagon. It kills. He's like, it's amazing. These fans love it. They love music. They know enough of the catalog of REO Speedwagon to keep going to the shows. I'm like, they're going to dig what you're doing. And it's true. Those are fans that came up in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. They're a dying breed almost. I hate to say that, but like, those are the people I want to play for because they dig it. And it's, those Michelle Branch shows were rough. I was like, this is brutal. They're waiting for her 2 songs. We are like some other random, and our fans didn't want to drop whatever the ticket price to see us play for 35 minutes. Ain't gonna happen. So,
dude,
I'm gonna say something provocative that
Uh-oh.
I think sometimes record label people and people in the industry don't know what the fuck they're talking about.
Steve.
that's never heard that, but yeah. They're like, I remember they sat us down after one of our shows. We played the Roxy. We had sold it out with no radio airplay, 500 people in there. Andrew Dice Clay shows up because he discovers us. He's an Allman Brothers freak, and he saw us open for the Allmans. And at the time, we had the same agent somehow. My agency also booked comedy. So Dice shows up. He's like a fictitious person to me. He comes backstage like, "Hey, you guys are incredible. Can I bring you on?" I'm like, "I guess, sure." He's like, "All right, sweet." He goes out there and does like 90 seconds of his whole routine with a cigarette, rips apart a bunch of women, just terrible, like rude comedy. And then Pat McGee, come on out. And then we go out there and do our show. it was just the craziest night. We did our thing, and the label's all there because it's LA. We go to the Rainbow Room, and they sit me down and they're like, we just don't feel like you're connecting with people, and we don't feel like there's a visual element of your band to promote. We can't figure out what to promote. I'm like, what? What? I just sat there and go, I didn't know have an answer. I just said, look, the bands that you have on Warner, the bands that no one still will ever hear of, they were out opening for us. They spend $1 million on budgets. They have no fan base. They're just random. Hey, this band might be big. Let's put them out on the road. And they find us because we're already drawing people without radio airplay. It was the weirdest disconnect. To have every market that we were doing well in on grassroots level, on the East Coast and Colorado, none of those places would play the music. So if we were selling out the Electric Factory in Philadelphia with 1,500 people, they wouldn't touch the song on the radio. DC, we were selling out Wolf Trap. They wouldn't play it. Richmond, Smash or Trash, we lost to like some Nelson song. I don't even know. It was like, what is happening? What do we got to do in our hometowns to get airplay? Because that would have been the nice lift for us. But they didn't do it. I mean, Elliot at DC 101 was always kind to us and brought us in for chatting. But I get it. Where are you going to put us? DC 101 was playing, HFS is going to play it. So there was no AAA. We spoke about KBCO in Colorado. That was the one that actually did help us, which was a tipping point for K-Fog in San Francisco, which is the only time I've ever felt like we had a hit song, because we went out there and the Fillmore was sold out in advance. We had never been to San Francisco. And I was like, this radio station has some serious pull in this market. My God. But other than that, the radio thing was always like, you're crushing it in Akron, Toledo, and we don't play these places. Like, what happened to the big cities? I don't know. Crazy. I don't know.
What an adventure.
Yeah. Just
what
like
an adventure. The
Yeah,
absurdities of awesomeness, right?
Yeah. But again, it's always about like getting out there and playing, and now more than ever, man, just connecting with people again and seeing how music can affect them. And I'm always amazed that the stuff, that's the one upside to the social media and just, geez, the internet in general. It wasn't there when we started. And the people that will write us and be like, I saw you in 97 and some major story, what happened? Hi, Jack. And they just have some huge connection. And I know you guys are the same way. You're a soundtrack to a time in people's life that was like the best time, their youngest days. Not that now's not amazing, it is, but when you're younger and you got nothing going on, it's about going out and seeing bands. I keep telling the guys, I'm like, you guys, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, we're gonna have a resurgence. I'm telling you, because these people who have kids will be able to go out again because they haven't been able to do anything for 18 years. So their kids are gonna go to college. They'll be like, yeah, let's go out like we're 20. Let's do this again. Showtimes will be earlier, but I think they'll come back out. We'll see.
The empty nest effect. That's awesome.
Yeah,
dude,
I'm ready.
So a couple things, and I want to be mindful of our time here. And so, Pat, if we don't cover everything today, we definitely want to have you back on, because part of what this is about is just, Steve, Nate, and I coming back together is everything. We've loved just being together and talking. And right here is just an extension of that to people we've known, that we're getting to know. So you just have an open invite to come back anytime. But one thing I want people listening to know is, it's two things. I want to talk a little bit about your songwriting path. But first I want to talk about Down the Hatch, because I moved down here to the Outer Banks in like 2013. And I'm not sure when you reached out to me, but you're like, bro, I got this thing called Down the Hatch, and I've been doing it for a few years. And you invited me to come play on the beach. And I don't know if you knew, I'd literally not been playing music at all. So I showed up with like a $200 plug-in Chinese-made guitar and played on the beach. I was like, I felt like
I knew.
I was nervous, dude. I was like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing. And I like ran home, like hid for a while. But then it's just like, as you were coming down here more and I started to plug more into that scene. And then what was it, like 2 years ago, you had the 10th anniversary? So there's been this growth in experiential deep dives into a scene that you were actually doing before people were really talking about it. So talk a little bit about like Down the Hatch, how it came about, and where it is right now, because I think that's such an incredible, I was blown away. Every time I go, I'm blown away by who you bring in, how deep you go with people. Cause you mentioned that, like, you wanting to know who the opening band was and what's happening to the finest detail. Like, you do that all the way through your event.
Yeah. It's definitely a labor of love. I love it. It did start off with just me and a couple other acts for just 2 days, Friday and Saturday. And now it's like kind of starts on Tuesday unofficially of it's June 1 through 4, technically this coming year. We've had 2 years of COVID cancellation. So it's like I said, it started off me wanting to show people a couple things. Incredible, all the travel that we've all done over these years. We see the most incredible places. Like, our country's amazing. It's like so many people don't get to see 90% of the country, that they stay in their world and they don't know about how cool Lawrence, Kansas is, or Tucson, or whatever whatever it might be. And NAGSET's like that. A lot of people are like, wow, if you're not on the East Coast, you probably never been there. You saw it in a movie or something. So I wanted to show people an incredible place. And I wanted to show them, serve them up on a silver platter, all these artists that I know. I always say, like, if James Taylor was at my house, who would I be like, hey, listen to my friend sing a song real quick. He's going to blow you away. I know it. And every one of those things, that's like kind of where, I don't know why I always go to James Taylor, but maybe I grew up holding him in the highest regard of perfect performance. And like, oh, if you get the nod from him, you might think you're doing something right as far as an acoustic guitar and singing something. So I wanted to bring artists down there, and now it's morphed into this all day on the beach. You sit there in your beach chair, and the artists rotate every 30 minutes. I'm adamant about nothing happens at the same time, like most festivals, because I don't want anyone to have to choose. I'm going to watch this headliner guy and then the low level guys playing at the same time on the crappy stage in the parking lot. Like, I don't want any of that. There's no one's higher billed than anybody else. I mean, if you see the names on the bill, you might go, well, I know who Little Feat is, and Glenn Phillips from Toto at Sprocket, or Sean Mullins, or whoever, but they play the same amount of time as everybody else. And for first 8 years, I never published a schedule because I didn't want anyone even picking, I'm going to go to lunch at Awful Arthur's and miss these 3 artists that I don't even know who they are. My whole point is I want you to leave and go, oh my God, I'm a huge fan of this random person from Michigan or this person from Arizona, and I'm now going to follow them online, and I'm going to stay with this person for as long as they're doing their thing. And it has happened. A lot of the artists that play the event are like, I tour around, and wherever I go, there could be a pocket of 10 people that come out in Baltimore because they saw me there, and now they're into what I'm doing. So it's blossomed into that, which is what I've always wanted to be. And Down the Hatch is like, I think because I just got done doing a school play with my kids did Alice in Wonderland when they were like, this was right at the beginning of, before Down the Hatch, I think. And Alice in Wonderland, I wrote a song for it with Jason Mraz for the play. And it was about going down into this rabbit hole and seeing this underground world. It's just like, look at all this stuff that I didn't know existed. And that's, I think, because people know Pat McGee Band is like a party thing. Like, is this like a booze fest? Like, Down the Hatch has nothing to do with doing shots. It's about going into this rabbit hole and being like, wow, I didn't know anything about all this. I didn't know about NAGSET. I didn't know how much fun I was going to have. And now we're doing headphone disco at night, which is a blast. We do theme nights, which have gotten a little out of control. I've come home with a full-on mohawk, much to the hatred of my wife and family. The first time I came home with it, wore it proudly for a week until they were like, get that thing off your head. And then the next time I shaved it in Connecticut because I was afraid to walk through the door. But then I just walked through looking like Forrest Gump. It was just, I'm committed to the experience, man. I was like, it was punk night. I was like, I don't really have anything to wear. I worked so hard on the event. I forgot to get a costume. I was like, I got an idea.
Dude.
I'm not, so yeah, man, I'll have to send you the photos, man. I'm still pretty proud of that look. I'm going to bring it back one day, but
Speaking
Anyway,
of look, I have, if you notice, I look like I'm in an 80s music video here with
yeah, you're
Totally.
totally aha on it
Go.
right now.
dude, like
Getting your
Steve, I got you crushed on the lighting.
getting your Kaja Gugu on, man.
Yeah, I love it. Well, I am so thrilled that you guys are back doing your thing, because from the early days of playing with Nate, God, that record I did was in, I don't even know what year that was. It's on my wall here, 2011. I don't know when I did that record, where I don't think I'd been playing with Nate. I just knew that he would be the right guy for the gig. And we just got to be friendly after that. And I always was like, man, I hope you guys can get back together and do something. And, I was a cheerleader from day one. So happy. And I know you made so many people happy just doing this, gearing up for more music. And, we were honored. I know you're like, oh, it's like that you got to play the Barns, but man, I assumed you'd say no. I'm like, I think these guys would do this. So I was honored, man. So thank you for saying yes to that gig.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Word. Here's to more of that. That's for sure, man.
Oh,
That's,
yeah.
that's good stuff.
Just so we're clear, I'm still working with COVID put a big pause on everything, but I still am planning a festival. I want to do Down the Hatch and roll it right into another week of Virginia bands, and just have the Virginia bands and market it to Virginia people from that were seeing bands in the 80s and 90s. And they could all go to one place and see us all play for 4 days. And we could all hang. It'd be great. And I just think it'd be a great, like, rev up the engine to whatever any of these bands might go do. Some of them are still full bore, Carbon Leaps of the world, but some of them might have to like rehearse a little bit, be like, sure, we'll do a set. Why not? Emmett Swimming's like, yeah, they already said yes. They're like, we were supposed to do the Filene Center with Emmett Swimming right before COVID. And then that just ended up not happening. But
Well, we should talk about that, because I've been having discussions with people down here who've been promoting around those types of ideas.
yeah,
So let's figure it out.
yeah, I just think it'd be great for the bands and the fans. I think it'd be an amazing, because I have everything's already set up. Like that's how they do it on the rock boats. That I did 18 of those things, those cruises, which used to be one boat with Sister Hazel, and now it's our Chardy, our percussionist, works for 6-man. So he's out with Kiss, the Skinner boat, an EDM cruise, a blues thing. They do freaking American movie classics. They just keep, the boat stays the same. Kiss comes in and plays on the same stage that Air Supply is going on the next week, and people leave one boat and they get on the other one. The people get off, the other ones get on. Production's all set. Like, just keep doing this. It's like having a mobile club. But yeah, I think it'd be fun.
Dude,
Yeah, super fun. We've talked about that. Let's do it. It's I think it's coming back to something that is just crucial for this whole thing, is that fan experience and like that.
Yeah.
What somebody's going to get out of that, and I think that's it. Like that experience. I've talked to so many friends of mine that are just like, yeah, man, if just for that, just to relive those golden years just a little bit, and
Right.
obviously it'd be different. We're in different places now as humans, but like that, just to put that together, and man, it'd be a blast. It'd be a blast for everybody.
And there's a part of me that's like, man, I want our fans to see you guys. I want your fans to see us. New Potato Caboose fans to be like, oh, dude, I've never seen Fighting Gravity. They're freaking fun. That's cool. I never would have gone and seen them. I thought they were like this ska thing that I wasn't into, or whatever. I just think that now people are like, cool, bring it on. I think it'd be fun to expose people, relive those times, and refuel the whole thing. I think it'd be fun.
Yep.
So we can find out more. So patmcgeeband.com, or is it patmcgee.com?
I think it's, maybe patmcgeeband.com and patmcgee.net, same place, I think. We're still working on that site. It keeps changing, but Down the Hatch is on the touring page. I think you can click on the Eventbrite link and see what's going on with that. It's on sale now for next year. It's one of these things that once people go, they just don't care who's on the bill anymore. They're just like, I'm just going to go, because I trust you as a curator of the artist to just let me know who's going. Because there are some people that they come the first time, like, I'm here to see whoever. I'm like, cool, I'm glad he got you here, she got you here. Welcome to the freaking party. But I bet you're going to leave here with like 10 CDs, So it's been cool.
I love it. And so you also have like killer merchandise and CDs for sale, and people can stream your stuff online.
Yeah, man.
Good.
It's always amazes me. Like, ordered a dozen hats like yesterday, and a bunch of hoodies and sweatpants, and like, oh my God, I'm still doing this. This is crazy. I just had to call my original graphic artist from 1993 to get the files. He's like, dude, I don't even know what format they're in. I got to call my ex-wife and have her send me a DVD of like, I think the art files from your first record are on the thing. He's like going to extract some of the like fonts and stuff and send it to me. So still knee deep in it. So
the glamorous part, the fonts from the early.
God, I literally thought about you guys. I'm like, what was I thinking? Like, everything had a logo. They stuck with it. Like, why did I change the way my name looked on every damn album? Like, I know what the Led Zeppelin font is. I know what the AC/DC font is. Kiss. Like, man, I missed on that one. I should have just stuck with something.
We're the band of no font.
I love it, dude. Nothing better than like seeing your sticker on a toll plaza or the back of a urinal.
Well, you'll be loving this look when I show up for the reunion with my tiger stripes. I won't need to rehearse. I'll just show up.
Kind of amazing.
The vibe. Looking like some red striped cat.
I love it.
I feel like I need to escape with my reputation right now. What little is left.
Yeah. And you're like, ow.
Dude, I didn't know your lead singer turned into a Jellicle cat. What's up?
Great.
Lloyd Webber wants his cast member back.
That's great.
Pat, dude, it's been really, really great chatting with you. And I definitely, our next conversation, I want to talk more about songwriting.
Yeah.
But we want to keep these conversations within a certain time frame.
Sure. No, I get it. Sorry, I can run on forever about this stuff, but
no apologies. It was a perfect conversation, and it was such a pleasure and an honor. And I just hope anybody who's out here listening to this can like listen to your music and support you, because the one thing I just really loved, it's like, it's not your moment, it's our moment. And there's very few people that do what you're doing at the level that you're doing it. And that's really incredible. And like, Steve and I are the better for it, just the way you've approached us since we've started again. And the encouragement has been just really, truly unbelievable.
Oh, well,
even though it's hard to hear, like, there you go. Heartfelt without the cat stripes might work a little better.
Striped passion.
I love it. Well, yeah, we have a record called Sugar Packet we did with the original band back at Q Studios right before COVID. If anyone wants to check out what we sound like, it feels like we jumped from 1998 to 2019 and made a record, but none of that time went by. And original band, same studio. We hadn't been there since '96. And it was awesome to do it again. And it was a bummer to release it during COVID, because it was like, but we're proud of it. And it's out there. Check it out, Sugar Packet. And to me, it sounds like you put us in a room and you pressed record. That's it. That's what we sound like. We didn't doctor it up. I was the only guitar player. It sounds like the harmonies did back in the 90s. And, having lost our drummer in 2006, the kid, I call him a kid still, even though he's 30 something. I met him at the Porticall. He was 9 or 10 years old. He was my drummer's family friend, and he went on to be a drummer. And he's known our catalog his whole life. So this Matt Calvarese, he's played drums with us at the Barns, but he was the perfect guy to take that spot where Chris was, and have that spirit there. And he just played. I mean, we thought, oh man, is he going to be able to handle it? And then we're like, dude, we can't even keep up with him. This kid is like unbelievable. Perfect drummer for that album. So check it out.
Awesome.
Yeah, man.
Oh, I love you, buddy.
Yeah, you guys as well. Look forward to talking to you again, and let me know when you guys fire up the machine. I want to come see some shows, man. I'd love to do that. Or if you want to write some music, I still
Yeah.
got some stuff. I have a file of stuff, and I'm like, this would be good for everything.
Ooh.
Word.
Licks long. They're just like licks, and like this is perfect. I'll send this to those guys.
I love
So,
that. Send
yeah.
away. Steven, speaking of licks, do you have some ook licks for me? Because I gotta keep the tiger stripes off my face for a second.
Well, thanks, Pat, and just a wonderful
Yeah, dude.
conversation. It just
Oh,
feels
yeah.
good, man. So appreciate
Yeah,
it,
man.
and y'all have been watching The Pocket with everything.
Woo. Ooh, love that. All right,
Oh,
Pat.
yeah.
Later, my
Tasty.
brother.
All right, you guys be well.
Peace.
Go clean that makeup off, Craig.
I know, right?